of who is in the room. So if you want to start with yourself, we'll go around this way.
Sure, I'll start. I'm Chris Hellman. I'm a city councillor and I am the vice chair of public services.
I'm Dan Ronish. I'm a city councillor. I worked with Chris Hellman. I am nothing in this committee except a participant.
You forgot.
And vice chair.
Oh, and vice chair. No, sorry, vice chair today. Thank you.
Yeah, vice chair.
Chair, thank you. This is my normal seat.
Good job.
It's empty. Thank you all for coming. It's good to see you. Selena, why don't you continue?
Sure. I'm Selena Simmons and I work at the Palex Foundation. And so I'm excited to be here and excited to see Nancy on the front page there.
Hi, Shauna Dickey, manager of our community sports team, the City of Medicine.
Anna Marquin, community resource worker, community supports.
Eric Bussey, corporate communications specialist, communication, engagement, and marketing.
Aaron Nelson, acting director, community development. And James Will, I'm the director of Parks and Recreation.
I am Lee Presteko, the acting manager and director of public services.
And I'm Lindsay Perry, executive assistant with the Public Services Division.
Terrific. I'm Nancy Mannix, chair and patron of the Palex Foundation, but I just see there's other folks online here, maybe from your side, that want to come in. Sorry about that. I jumped the queue.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Chad Aikens. I'm the fire chief, city.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Melanie Conlon. I am community resource worker with City Manhattan.
Thank you very much, everyone. I guess we'll just dive right into it. We have a presentation from the Palex Foundation today. So I will leave it to Nancy and Team Selena. Take it from here.
Right. So Selena, why don't you maybe quickly introduce your role while we get the presentation up, and then they'll see the connection directly with your role in this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I've been really blessed to be a part of the Palex Foundation and the work that they're doing here in Medicine Hat. And my role here is community development. So I work to kind of pull all the pieces together in Medicine Hat, get all of the pilot pieces going, working with the city, working with different partners in our community to make sure that everybody understands who Palex is and that we all start to get trained in Resilience Masterclass. I've really enjoyed this role so far. I'm very lucky to be a part of this organization. I just ask that you guys listen and we try to implement it in any way we can.
Thank you. Can you see the screen? Is it coming up with our presentation?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, there, great. That should be it, right? Selena, that makes that. Okay, super. So quickly to introduce us, we're a private foundation here in Calgary. We have an endowment, and over the last almost 15 years, we have spent close to $100 million on this project we call the Alberta Family Wellness Initiative. And it was really about looking at the science that was being discovered globally around developmental neuroscience, behavioral neuroscience, genetics, and epigenetics, and the role that experiences, good and bad, play during sensitive periods of development, prenatal to young adulthood, and risk and vulnerability for disease and disorder, including addiction and mental health. Basically, the initiative is to act as a catalyst for concrete action and change to advance the understanding and approach to brain development and its lifelong impact on health outcomes. We have a lot of scientific oversight. I'm not going to go through everyone here, but this group oversaw the Brain Story certification course, which I'm going to share a little bit more about that in a moment. But just to say, there are directors for the National Institutes of Health in the US, as well as the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, David Dodger, a former governor of the Bank of Canada, and the late Glenda McQueen, who was a neuroscientist psychiatrist at the University of Calgary School of Medicine. Basically, where this knowledge is coming from is a group at Harvard that really were the top scientists in the world, that none of their work was making any difference in policy or practice. So what they did is they brought in this group called the Frameworks Institute that could help them synthesize and translate that complex science into what we call a story form called the brain story with metaphors. But that brain story research, how they did the research for this, was to really do a lot of research initially on what does the public believe about how things work. How do you get good outcomes or bad outcomes? To really understand that gap between the science, again, to the public understanding. We hired frameworks to help us in Alberta to understand the Alberta belief systems that really could go alongside what they were learning in the US around these, what we call cultural models that the public holds. So what I'm going to share with you is some of the research of what was discovered. And here is actually, this is a synthesis of the American research, what we call dominant cultural models, along with the Alberta models and the UK and Australia. And the reason we share all these dominant models is because we share the same storytelling. Movies, television, media reinforce what we call this gap between what the public believes or explains about outcomes and what the science is trying to tell us. So when the public was asked, well, what makes a good outcome or a bad outcome for a child? They'll say you either have good parents or bad parents. You either have good genes or bad genes. The big finding when the public was asked about children's mental health or adult mental health is the public does not know what you mean when you say mental health. But we're going to spend billions of dollars on mental health, but people can't actually tell you what it means or what it is. What is addiction? Again, a swamp of ideas. It could be anything. It's in the substance. The public can't name the brain as to where it happens. What causes addiction? There is something in the public's notion about prior life events, create risk and vulnerability, but then they go to genetics. You either have the gene or you don't, or it's a lack of willpower, a lack of character, a moral failing. Resilience is thought as an innate ability you either have or you don't. So again, a very deterministic model. So here is this new translation of that science to these concepts that again were tested on the public to see whether the public could understand this new science in a way that was more productive. So the first metaphor is brain architecture. Brains are built over time. They're built from the bottom up, just like a house that has to have a sturdy foundation. The process of building the brain is done through what's called a serve and return dynamic between a child and a caregiver. What can undermine the foundation of the house? Something called toxic stress, abuse, neglect can make the foundation of the house less sturdy, less stable, the child more vulnerable. In addition to the skill set of serve and return, there's air traffic control, which is executive functioning and self-regulation. Can they pay attention, plan, prioritize, pay attention to the right thing at the right time? Impulse control. Reward motivation systems come online prenatally to young adulthood. Under positive conditions, it acts as a regulator on a day-to-day basis. The overarching concept is this idea of resilience, which is the beam on the fulcrum or the purple triangle. On the left-hand side of the scale, we can name adversities, put those in red boxes. They can pile up on the left-hand side of the beam, tip the beam to the left, the blue needle into the red zone, or poor outcome. On the right-hand side of the beam, we can name safe, stable, supportive relationships, safe, stable, supportive environments, put those in green boxes that can pile up on the right-hand side of the beam, tip the beam to the right, the blue needle into the green zone, or a positive outcome. But the fulcrum can move. If someone has good skills and abilities of serve and return, air traffic control, reward motivation, the fulcrum is placed to the left, which means adversity does not push down so hard, tip the beam to the left, or the poor outcome. If you have weak skills and abilities, the fulcrum is placed to the right, which means it doesn't take a lot of adversity to tip that beam to the poor outcome. So that is the brain story. That's the resilience scale. So what we did many years ago is we brought all those scientists to Alberta and had 8 one-week-long symposia from 2010 to 14. We had 400 decision makers over those 5 years. They came from policy in the Alberta government, from health, child services, justice, and education. They came from AHS, primary care, community organizations, educators, and justice. So again, policymakers, doctors, nurses, social workers, psychologists, teachers, lawyers, judges, police. and we brought everyone into the same room at the same time and told them the same story. This is how it works. This is how development works, which actually gets you to our outcomes. Our systems have been built and based on addressing the red box outcomes to address the problems. We turned it upside down and said, well, if we knew what the foundations of capacity are and when things derail, we would probably spend our money differently and better so that we build more capacity in individuals and communities. So what we did is, from those 5 years, we did an evaluation, and what came out of that evaluation and subsequent report was this paper. Basically, we asked everybody who participated, those 400 folks, do you care about this story? Because if you don't care, don't do it. Resoundingly, what people said was, I needed to know this, and everyone I work with needs to know it. That's what generated us creating the Brain Story Certification course, which is from those 5 years of presentations, we put them into a 20-hour online course that is free. It's also in French, that anyone in any part of the world can access. And again, our partner on that is the University of Oxford. So the course data for us from March 6, 2026, it is a global resource. We have a large project in the UK led by Oxford. We have the state of Queensland in Australia as another systems level approach to how would we change our systems based on this new knowledge. And then in Canada, you can see it is across Canada, but in Alberta, we're getting close to 100,000 people enrolled. You see down there below, it's Medicine Hat at about 1,900 folks. Our intent was to put the knowledge where people live, remote communities, rural, small towns, small city, the urban centers. And as you can see, we've been quite successful at that. Who's getting certified? Everyone from early childhood to social workers, healthcare workers, education. And Alberta Healthcare, I know you'll all understand why this slide's a bit wonky, but we just took the Alberta Health Services data historically to tell you this story, which is primarily what we want to share with you is the pilot for the larger systems clinically came from Alberta Health Services Child and Adolescent Mental Health Calgary Zone, which we're going to show you in a moment. It is in every education division across the province. Kainai in yellow, and then far to the right would be Pakani or Pagan is in yellow because the teachers, EAs, administrators must be certified to work in those school divisions. So again, I think you'll see Medicine Hat at 277 and Medicine Hat Catholic, I'm not sure if I can see that on there, which just means it's below 157, but I can assure you there would be people that are participating. We think everyone should graduate with this. These numbers are underrepresented because a lot of kids sign into the course as students, but they'll tell us where they work, 7-Eleven. But again, we're trying to make this way more cost efficient by saying they need to be enabling kids to take this course within current course lines, whether it's social work, nursing, medicine, education, because they will need it when they graduate. And that's where we're trying to be more efficient with where the training actually happens for new graduates. This is the chart for social service agencies in the province. You see Calgary Police Service at 862 up there. It's blue because it's not required. Some of their programs it's required, domestic violence, school-based police officers, but not every officer. Woods Home, as you know, tertiary level care for kiddos in care, it is required. That's why it's yellow. Any organization that's yellow, it is required that their staff be certified. And again, lots of uptake between addiction and mental health treatment for adults, kiddos, as well as places like the YMCAs. So part of that came through policy. So child services policy in the province is well-being and resiliency, the Indigenous component, but here is how policy works. All they did was took exactly the same language of the resilience scale and said, this is what we're trying to affect. We're trying to reduce red boxes, add green boxes, and build skills and abilities for those kids across, those sensitive periods. So move the fulcrum to the left. So this is probably one of the best examples of policy crafting with science translation anywhere in the world. And they did not change the language. This is the language that was actually created in terms of that research. And I will make a point, the resilience scale testing on that metaphor was done in Alberta with regular Albertans participating in that research. So the implementation of the policy was the Child Services said, if you're going to receive funding from us, a condition of your grant will be that your staff will need to be certified. So it was a really good lever. This is an example with the federal government to the provincial government, Child Services for daycares. Our Child Services said we're going to pay to train all our daycare workers to get that certification. And what they meant when they said pay is they bought their time. So the course was free, but did allow for population level upgrade in all those folks working with their young children every day. So in health, the Adverse Childhood Experience Questionnaire is now embedded in every health record across the province, which is really important patient level data and population level data to measure adversity. And here's the reason why. This is one of the scientists from the Harvard group we worked with. His name is Bruce McEwen. And basically what he says is that developmentally, prenatally to young adulthood, when kids experience what they call that toxic stress, there's a physiological response biologically. That stress changes our neurobiological function, it changes our metabolics, and it changes our epigenetic expression, how our genes express and suppress. So it's very powerful what's going on here. So that is called what they call allostatic load, which are the red boxes on the scale. So no accident that Bruce was a part of the group that synthesized and translated that complex science to this scale idea, and the red boxes represent what he's saying here. So what they're developing is McGill and Harvard, is a biomarker for very young children, 4-month-old to 5-year-olds, to get cheek swabs, saliva, hair samples to measure stress activation, again, 4-month-old to 5-year-olds in the general population. What they get out of that normative values, is they'll know from that if which kid is above the norm, or below the norm. So they have higher stress activation than the normal population, or they have just normal stress activation or below. That will help us identify which kids are experiencing that toxic stress so we can help with intervention to bring that stress activation down. That's the idea of why you have a biomarker. The folks on that masthead that are creating this work are the same people who teach our course. Those were the same people we brought to Alberta. We're funding McGill to do the same norming study for Canadian kids. And again, we highlight vulnerability to chronic adult conditions. That happens very early in life as it turns up, but it builds over time. So in the Canadian study, the resilience scale is actually being dropped in. And there will probably be 7 universities, it is pan-Canadian, that will participate. In what I was asked to do by the Ministry of Addiction and Mental Health from the Government of Alberta was to present the Brain Story and Resilience Scale framework to all the ministries across Canada. And I did that in September. Since then, we have followed up with 5 different provinces on this model. So in education, again, the mental health programming. We're working in integrating the brain story, and we call the resilience scale training, into deployment within all the school systems across the province. And we've been training, teaching school divisions, entire divisions, over the last year to get them engaged in that resilience scale masterclass is what we call it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. But as you can see, we've got Medicine Hat, Prairie Rose, Palliser as a part of that process. Reforming family justice is the other area where we really, through that symposia series, saw that family law, family court, was really institutionally a part of what we call the adversarial system. Families can create, their arguments to make their arguments against each other for whatever area of family law, family court, and they go to a judge courtroom to get that resolved. That is very expensive for taxpayers. In fact, we pay for causing more problems when we do that. So being a part of the adversarial system for family law, family court is probably not the way we would want to do things, so that we're trying to reduce the challenge on families, not increase it by, again, families going to family law, family court for resolution. So to that end, this family reforming or reimagining family justice has been created. And the Alberta Law Foundation granted $27 million to the University of Calgary School of Law and Social Work to say, how would we do this different? What would be another way that we could facilitate families through a very difficult time for most families in a way that would not create more problems for those families and kiddos? So the masterclass is our new training. That 20-hour free brain story certification course is available, but now we have a 3-hour training, which is actually moving the knowledge into practice much quicker. We ask 3 questions in the training. What do individuals need? What do organizations do? And what does the system have? These are our 3 implementation reports of the evidence of what this training and change means for the people going through it. So we have designers and evaluators for this training. It includes a team from Oxford, the neuroscientists from the University of Lethbridge, epidemiology and social work from the University of Calgary. So what we do with this training, the first part is a 90-minute explanation of what the resilience scale is and how it works. We did the initial training, excuse me, with 300 participants. They went from psychiatrists to bus drivers to educators and everybody in between, law enforcement as well. Basically what we do after the 90-minute explanation, we hand out an exercise, and there's 1 of 3 scenarios everybody gets in the real life training. Everybody gets 3 pencil crayons, a red, a green, and a purple. And what we ask them to do is take the scenario, and in this case, it's Angela, who's come into a not-for-profit program to get some support. And we ask them to take what she comes in and tells you and code what she's telling you about what's going on in her life to the scales. Make a picture of what she tells you. What are the green boxes in her life? What are the red boxes, the things she's challenged with? And place that fulcrum where you think her skills and abilities are. Again, executive functioning, self-regulation, serve and return, reward motivation. If she's doing pretty well at coping, you put that fulcrum to the left. So then we ask them, well, why did you put the boxes where you put them? So with the rationale that people gave us, that was graded on a 4-point graded system on how close did their rationale match what we just told them in that 90 minutes. And what we discovered is 92% of the folks got the principles correct. So it's highly effective, highly efficient training to move people very quickly into this new knowledge. And again, it's free. So again, people said they could do it. It made sense. And that actually is now accredited by the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada, across Canada, and the Canadian Nursing Association. So that's, again, really good credentials. So, you're getting very quality, high quality training. So I wanted to show you this picture. This is a 10-minute video, and it's very important for this particular group. So Mike McCauley's the head of the RCMP crime reduction strategy for the province. And I know you can see what we have behind him is his resilience scale. He did the brain story and the resilience scale training, and he said, I'm going to tell you my story on the scale and what happened to him when he was a 7-year-old. So he had some very severe things happen in his life. His mom was murdered by an intimate partner. His dad, who was a police officer, suffered severe PTSD. He was really, really challenged, as everyone would imagine. But what we want you to look is his green boxes. So in his case, you can see he saw a child psychiatrist because he was having terrible nightmares. And this child psychiatrist did an intervention over a few months with him doing therapy. And it really, really helped relieve that symptom of that stress response. So she was necessary, but she wasn't sufficient to get his scale to tip to the right. What you see on there was the extended family showed up for him intentionally, really got him engaged with the extended family, sports, coaches, teammates, friends, and teachers. So again, these supports that we think of in the community, we all know they're important, but we didn't understand why they were critical for him to have the outcome that he did, which he does. He has a very positive outcome in his life. So I just wanted to share that particular, then again, it's a 10-minute video. He explains why all these things mattered to him. But again, for this purpose, with the folks in the room, you can appreciate how important the role is that the services you provide play in providing that very thing. I'm going to go to the ABCD study. And it's a very important study being done in the US right now. It's hundreds of millions of dollars. It was the National Institutes of Health who designed this study. They recruited back in 2018, 12,000 kids, 9 and 10-year-olds. Every year, those kids get MRIs, functional MRIs, biosamples, surveys, and wearables. They have a massive data set over time now. So 7 years in, they have 17-year-old data now. So those 17-year-olds, those kids are now 17. And now they can build predictive models through machine learning on understanding the outcomes that what are the things that drive to our outcomes. An example is in their predictive capacity, they can now tell which kid after one drink will be a problem drinker 3 years before they take that drink. So this study is picking up the signals before they get to the symptom, just like that early years 4-month-old to 5-year-old biomarker. There's signals that start very early, and if we can identify which kids have those signals, we could do intervention much earlier, much cheaper, so you change the trajectory of that kiddo. Things that were invisible, we can now see. So we're working with Nina DeLacy, who is at the University of Utah. She's a data scientist and psychiatrist, a very unusual person in the world because she holds those two specialties. And she's working with us to help us, and we introduce her to the Government of Alberta folks, plus other academics, about how we could think of the Alberta system and how do we improve what we do here. So I'm going to quickly show you the clinical tool because you will see where you guys fit. So this was done at AHS Calgary Zone, or now Recovery Alberta. So what they do with the kiddo is the parent may or may not be in the room, but the therapist is there, and they explain to the kiddo what the scale is. This is what red boxes are. This is what green boxes are. And this fulcrum can be placed in different locations based on skills and abilities. They show them a couple of our videos, and our videos are very funny and they're very cute. And they give them the information to take home, and then they show them this scale. I'm not going to go through all the boxes, but just to show you, this is a typical example of what they're seeing in this clinic. All those red boxes: high conflict parenting, marijuana use, junk food, feeling bullied at school, emotional neglect. And again, on the green boxes, this example, they show the grandma, they do attend school, they have a few friends, and they really like their community soccer. So again, these elements are key to what gets loaded on the scale. So we are now second generation testing that clinical tool to more and more organizations. So we start to capture the data around what individuals are experiencing on the scale. The organizational change management is the next example. And again, we're going to go much faster now that we've gotten through that first part. So Harvard created a very simple coding process for organizations and their programs. They first identified, where does the program happen? It can happen in lots of different settings. What's it designed to do? Reduce red, move purple, or add green, which we can now target the scale. Our program affects this part of the scale. That's really what we're trying to help people understand. So we asked 10 organizations in Calgary if they could code their programs based on that same design. And here's Fresh Start Recovery in Calgary, men's recovery program. Residential addiction treatment is coded red because they have special skills that deal with the red box outcome of addiction. So again, you see where their specialty is on that outcome on the scale. Counseling is an example of skills and abilities, typically what they're trying to build. Most of those guys did not acquire the skill set of serve and return or executive functioning, which is why they have the outcome. Counseling is about helping the men gain those skills. Because you didn't get them does not mean we can't teach them to you. So again, the guys talk about their scale with the scale which was built, which was a great application of the scale. YWCA, there's the domestic violence shelter. Again, if that's on your scale, they know how to treat it. So the third paper was, how does it come together as a system? I'm just going to leave it in here because I want to make sure there's time for questions. Yep. Okay, so this is the third paper, and it really is, how do organizations come together in a community, and how do they integrate so people can find where the certain assets are? So we use Lethbridge, and I'm not gonna go to the live map just for time's sake. But on this slide, you can see what we call the Lethbridge community map with a bunch of red dots and green dots. These represent organizations in Lethbridge we coded. Green dots are organizations that serve the green box, safe, stable, supportive relationships and environments. Red dots are designed to be red because they have special skills that deal with red box outcomes. You can click on any one of those dots and it will give you what that organization does. And then you see the arrows is where the data is from the work we do in the field doing the Resilience Scale Masterclass, when we ask everybody, who do you refer to and who refers to you? I will point out that a number of the green dot organizations represent publicly accessed assets, like the school systems, because that should be a green box, and the Parks and Rec, green box. Are they green boxes? That's the question. Are your parks a green box? Do you feel safe, stable, and supported? The rec centers, the libraries. Again, all those kinds of programs are represented on this map. So, finally, we created a community implementation of the Resilience Scale framework, and we brought in the University of Chicago that helped us frame out, how would a community know if it's doing better or not? What would be the data they would look to? This team came up to Alberta, and one of the first community I'll share is High Level, Northern Alberta. We went and did the masterclass training initially with 500 members of their community to really lay out this new framework. Again, a community that's not going to have a lot of mental health people moving up there. And in fact, that's not necessarily what they actually needed. But here is the data from high level. This is their brain story enrollments, certifications, and their masterclass data. But here was the key interview. When Chicago had meetings with these different groups, you see all of them, the key question was not what was your data. It was what are the data indicators you use to tell you whether what you're doing is working or not, your outcomes. And what came back was we don't measure outcomes because we know what they were. Now we see the scale. Some of our data is relevant. We're missing data, and a lot of data we collect means nothing. So that was a key finding. So the question was, well, what's the data you're collecting? And they said it's what our funder wants. Government of Canada, Government of Alberta, the town, the United Way. And what's that data? Utilization, inputs, outputs. So again, we're not measuring outcomes, we're just measuring inputs, outputs, which again is that's where you see the disconnect between what we're trying to measure, outcomes, and what our funders are paying organizations to measure. So here's Medicine Hat. It's the second community in this deep dive. And here's the data. In terms of the data we have from masterclasses, on the right is real live training, not our virtual training. The second is our certifications, and the first one over there is the enrollments. And again, here were the interviews with these players that Chicago had. And there's your mapping. And then finally, Lethbridge is the third community. And then the interviews with these groups, they're mapping. And here's the report we're happy to send to you. I think you've got this report in your package. So finally, we do have MOUs with, this is not our intent is to have everybody do an MOU, that's not necessary, but we have one with the Canadian Centre on Substance Abuse in Genome, Alberta, and then the City of Lethbridge and the University of Lethbridge as a part of that system integration model that we're using to really capture decision-making at the city or town level so that the decision-making becomes more coherent. So we know the outcomes we're trying to drive to, who's got what part, and what's the action we can take. So again, we had a 3-day symposia in November, 150 folks from across primarily the province of Alberta, including a number of folks from Medicine Hat. Again, we have the science presentations. Selena presented on the Medicine Hat strategy. And again, data sessions and implementation. So you probably or may know Regan out at Prairie Rose and about the implementation there, along with clinical implementation from U of C and RCMP. So this is the paper we're happy to share with you. And again, we can send this to you about what we see moving in the future. So I want to share this last little bit because this is a little bit on the uplift. We have developed a new video. It's a 2.5-minute comedy, and we're hoping to have it launched here within the next month. And it is called Adverse City. And it's about a town that has everything happen to it that's like really challenging. All these crazy things happen. And how do the citizens come together to help each other and help the town, and they keep it running? So I want you to notice this is the town, the animation. You can see on the left is Medicine Hat Bridge, because we do a few tips to Medicine Hat and obviously other parts of the provincial culture. Here's the scale as the town monument. We're trying to add green boxes, reduce red, tip the scale. So again, that needle goes into the positive outcome. These are the characters. Again, it is very humor driven around the various parts and times of life. There's our dancing cowboys and our little baby in the middle and the little tool belts. So the top one is for a smaller child. The ball represents serve and return. You roll the ball out, it comes back. Got to learn how to read, literacy. The bottom one is more older kids and adults. The magnifying glass is being able to pay attention to something and focus. The scroll on the right is being able to have a plan, be able to execute the plan. And here's the battery pack, which we talked about, which is the mitochondria. And that is your cellular energy actually on a day-to-day basis. And again, our little monsters in the cow. So with that, I just want to, because I know we just have a few minutes left, I want to make sure we can bring this in for questions. So if we want to bring the escape and go back to the room, do you want to bring me back to the room? So I apologize, it was a lot, but hopefully it brings you into sort of the platform that we're building with Medicine Hat and looking for your thoughts or comments on what you saw.
Does anybody have any questions? Comments?
If I might,
Councilor Ryan?
through the chair. Nancy, great presentation. I'm not sure I get it.
I went by it pretty quickly.
I'm not sure I get what you're asking. I'm not sure I get what you want from me. I'm not sure I get anything.
Okay.
There was and I heard every word you said and I was hanging on your every word, but I'm really not too sure.
Okay, well, and that's great. That's a great comment and I appreciate it so much. So just so you're aware, we've been working this through the massive numbers of organizations in the province that deliver most of what we're talking. What we want from the folks here, like you at the table, with the Medicine Hat strategy is we want you to be aware of what we're trying to put into place in Medicine Hat and for the leadership to be supportive of what it is we're trying to accomplish and achieve. One of the key elements that this table really works on is what we call the green boxes. That is the purpose of this committee, to say, why do we have these programs in sports and rec? Why are they important? What is it that we need to ensure that we protect and that we maintain and that we actually grow? Because that is actually what protects development and our communities from the red boxes, the outcomes that so many communities are challenged with, whether it's mental health challenges, addiction challenges, chronic disease challenges. That's where we tend to focus just on that, emergency room times. And as a result, we do a lot of crisis management funding, and we're not thinking about what actually builds our ability to manage things in a more productive way, which is actually cheaper. So what we're asking from the leadership of the Medicine Hat Council is specifically to do the trainings, more and more trainings within the city to get people into common knowledge, common language. We all know what we're talking about now. Add green boxes, reduce red boxes, build skills and abilities, and work together as a community to ensure that the assets you have are being intentional and utilized in the way that will give you more value. And that's really a lot of what we want to do. The other request is we would like to do an MOU with the City of Lethbridge on supporting this work, like what we did at the City of Medicine Hat, like what we did at City of Lethbridge. And we have that document in that system integration piece. Exactly. So it is really an ask to participate, to encourage more of the learning so you would become more clear about what it is. And I do apologize. I know it was a lot of information for the first time, so I do apologize for that. It is a lot.
Yeah, I'll also just mention, Dan, at this, or Councilor Reinish, sorry. I'm used to being on the hot seat with you saying Dan.
Remember Mr. Councilor Ryan.
Mr. Councilor Reinish. I think what's really important to know is that this work's already happening here in Medicine Hat. Like, for example, Medicine Hat Family Service is involved in a pilot project to start using the scale. So we're actually using the scale in everything we do right now in Medicine Hat Family Service, starting to implement it with our clients to have them start using this language. And I think at the end of the day, to have all of the city staff trained in the Resilience Masterclass allows all of us as not-for-profit directors, allows all of us as a community to speak in the same way. So when I phoned the Leisure Center and said, I need a green box, friends, they can go, okay, great, got it. Here you go. Got it. Here's a ticket to get in or whatever for that child. So that we can start to have these bigger conversations. The other piece about it is when you look at the community mapping and that kind of thing, there's so much value in that. We talk all the time. I can tell you I'm at every single table with every single not-for-profit director every single day talking about we need a city map. We need to know where all the things are. Palex is already developed it. It's sitting there waiting for us to use it and to be part of this organization, this thing. And I will say, we've been working with Shauna and Annabelle for a very, very long time to implement these things within the city. And we just want you to be aware of it. We want you to take the class. We want you to understand it as well, so that when we're talking about these things with council, when we're coming with grant applications, things like that, to say we need this or we need that, that you guys understand what we're talking about in the same language. And it's a simple way to explain it to people. I always think of Parks and Rec is actually always what I think of. You know, we think of Parks and Rec as this thing over here. And really what Nancy's saying is Parks and Rec is actually really up here. Like, it's really important that we have a really good Parks and Rec system, because and that's the city's in charge of that. So if we can talk about those things and be really intentional about them, we can really make a difference in our community. And I think our community is special already because we're all so connected already, that it really is the best place to start this process is in Medicine Hat, because we're already there, we're already connected. And if we can have this common language to take us forward, it can make all the difference in what we do in our community, I think.
And I think practically too, just to give you another example, is when we talk about a park and you want it to be a green box, a safe, stable, supportive place, what do you do when that gets infiltrated with red box activity? Like, what do you do? And I think that's exactly what the Parks and Rec across the province are saying. We don't know what to do when we see this happening, or a rec center or a library where there's an infiltration. And what is the strategy to keep that a protected space so that everyone is safe, stable, and supported when they go in there? And that is what this is trying to help. What is your strategy for that, if that's important to you? So that's really what we're trying to say, is how do we create this safe, stable, supportive environments so our communities have capacity? If we lose them, then it's very hard to get them back. And we all know that. And it's very expensive to get them back. So this is a much more, let's get our heads up. Let's get focused on what we need to do so that it doesn't become a bigger problem. That's an example.
I think too, what I said at the beginning too, is that it also teaches everybody that they can be a green box. So I think about, you know, the Big Marble Go Center, and the person at the front desk at the Big Marble Go Center feels like they're just, you know, seeing people come in, taking their money. This is my job, to take their money. My job is to take people's money. But maybe your job is actually to light up when that kid that comes in every Wednesday comes in. It's your job to light up because you're that kid's green box, and you're the only green box they have. And so if you actually understand that, you feel differently about your job, right? You just do.
And I want to make sure it's clear that it's also seniors. Like, it's right till death. This is the scale that takes you. So seniors, continued care living, all of that is a part of what is built here. This scale represents our biological design, it's a very powerful model because it answers the questions we just keep throwing money at problems that pop up. We actually understand how it works now. And that is a different way to think of resources. Oh, then we would spend our money maybe differently than just waiting till things really derail. And now it's very expensive. And that's what we're trying to help people understand better. What should we be doing different? Does that make sense to you guys? I don't want to, I just want a temperature from the room, just because I know the counselor Reinish, that you were kind of, is that help at all in terms of what we had in the last couple of minutes to help better understand what this is about?
It does. Yes, it does. Very much so. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
I love the idea that it's based on story and such strong visuals, right? That you can code this with 3 pencil crayons. So that's excellent. So for large complex organizations like governments, like large academic institutions, have you mapped those organizations in themselves? So, we're both a red box and a green box organization, right? We're regulatory. We also do parks and recs, culture. Has that sort of work been done, or say at the provincial level? Because I do think it's important for an organization to know itself as well in terms of green boxes and red boxes.
Well, your programs, you're right. Some are red box programs and some are green box programs, clearly. So your policing, fire, that's red box. They're there to do a job on that. Green Box is Parks and Recs. So that's something we can do with you. It's really not super complicated. It's very easy, but what's going to be very helpful if you have a dashboard of where you spend your money and you go, this is where we spend our red box money. This is where we spend our green box. Now you'll start to get an idea. That's the total number we spend here, the total number we spend there. And that gives you a starting point to say, well, eventually we want to spend more money here, less money here, because there was, you know, it's more intensive money. So
Exactly.
that's,
Yeah,
it's very
exactly.
simple.
So has that work been done in other municipalities or other
No,
levels
but
of
we want
government?
to do, we want to do with you guys. You kind of are a place where we think we could start doing that in Medicine Hat because you've got so many organizations already on board that you guys would be a great example of a municipality who could say, yeah, this isn't, we get what this is, and you can really start to lay out where you spend your money.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? I know I'm sold, but I also have to take this as part of my schooling. So I have to do it anyway. I don't want to deflate your green box there.
No. Hey, listen, we've been at this for so long. This is great. And I just want to thank you all for your time, and Selena and everyone for organizing this with your group here. We really appreciate it. And we're very honored to be in front of you, and look forward to next steps. We'd be delighted to show up in any way that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Nancy. We're sorry that you weren't able to make it this afternoon, but I'm sure that'll be rescheduled.
Yeah, I will. And I apologize. We were in Grand Prairie last week. We got stuck up there with the plane. Couldn't get us out. So the pilots today said it's a bit iffy in Medicine Hat, and it's probably beautiful down there right now, but they're like this big thunderstorm, ice storm coming or something. So that was just a bit of a challenge to make sure that we could get down and back. So I apologize for that. We wish it were different, but we definitely will reschedule the community that we would love to meet you there at that point.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Great. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have any final questions for me before I go? Thank you guys so much for listening and for being here. If you guys have questions, like moving forward, you want to sit down and chat more, give me a call. You know where I am. I'm just down the street. Just call. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Leila.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye, friends. Yeah.
On to item number 2, Community Vibrancy Advisory Board. Is there a new update?
These are here for evolution. The January meeting included, we have a new chair, Carissa Sievers, so you will see her come here occasionally to represent some of the board's recommendations. We had a presentation on festival and event planning and some of the great work that Parks and Recreation has done, as well as a presentation from our new Indigenous Relations Coordinator. These are here for your information.
Good. Yeah, it just seems like we just had the update on the Wall of Fame, but that was already 2 weeks ago.
I wasn't able to make that meeting, but I ran into Darlene coming out of the meeting as our meetings ended at the same time. So we briefly chatted.
Okay, and then managing directors, service area updates.
I do have 2 updates for you today. The first one that we will ask acting director Nelson to present is related to an upcoming cultural forum.
Great. Thank you. So we have our inaugural cultural forum coming up on March 23rd between 9 and 4:30 at the Esplanade Arts and Heritage Center. So this came out of our Arts, Heritage and Entertainment Plan that we would have this yearly forum to assemble a cultural community For three reasons. So basically, there's three parts to the forum. The first one is asking, so curiosity. So that'll be a panel discussion with about 5 or 6 representatives from across the kind of cultural landscape in our community. And there'll be also a short presentation on our arts, heritage, and entertainment plan as well for the community. The second component will be a learning component. So this year we have brought in a marketer to share knowledge of how to market for smaller organizations or even individuals in our community, so they are better able to communicate the good work that they're doing. And the third component will be a World Cafe. We'll call it the listening component. So that's where we'll be really trying to understand what the zeitgeist of the cultural community is, what the issues are in the community, and collecting that data. So that will inform our work as the city moving forward. So the important part of the Arts, Heritage, and Entertainment Plan is it's a plan for all of the community. So it's not just the work that the city does, it's how can we align all of the work done. So there's smaller organizations, there's arts organizations and performing arts organizations. So many of them will be in attendance, and the public can register for this at tix.ca. And again, it's on March 23rd between 9 and 4:30 p.m. Questions?
What would just be a couple of examples of some of the organizations that would participate?
We have the Medicine Hat Public Libraries on the panel, the Hat Art Club, Chamber of Commerce. Those are 3 on the panel that I'm thinking of. We have a representative from the Indigenous community. And then organizations that are attending, Pop-Up Parks, Mural Fest, some of the festival folks will be attending. I know individuals with interest in the cultural field will be attending as well. So group who are passionate about heritage in our community will be attending. Historical Society.
I'm scheduled to attend, but I have a conflict at 2, so I'll only be able to stay up until the 1 o'clock start time.
Excellent. Yep. I'm glad you were able to come for a portion of it.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
The second verbal update we have for you all. Turn it first to Director Will. Chief Eakins will also have some contributions, but to share with you some of the actions that the public services team departments took in response to yesterday's windstorm.
Thank you very much. So yesterday we had some fairly strong winds in the community. I think probably you couldn't get away from hearing them if you're in your house, if you were out, unfortunately, out in the community, if you had to be out in traffic. We certainly saw lots of situations where there was some debris going across the road. We saw, that lots of people had shingles going off houses, we found damage to trees and to other infrastructure in the community.
Brian Varga lost some shingles.
Oh, okay.
From Arizona.
From Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay. So 100-kilometer-an-hour winds were what were experienced across the community yesterday. So caused a number of trees that were damaged in both on private property and public property. When we see high wind activities or events that are occurring, we do have staff that are deployed to go and deal with more emergency situations. So maybe not the same type of emergency as fire services, but where we have a roadway that's being blocked or a potential branch that's going to fall and potentially harm someone if they're in the area. But typically our cleanup activities occur after the high wind event has concluded. The reason for that, obviously, staff safety, the safety for being able to deploy equipment, especially bucket trucks and things that we wouldn't want to be putting up in 100-kilometer-an-hour wind. Unfortunately, we have Westview Dog Park that's closed today. We have notified the public through social media. Appreciate the work that Eric and the team did on that. We had some power lines and power poles that were damaged by wind quite extensively. I know they're quite an angle if you can see that on social media. I think that same picture was attached on there, Eric. Not sure if you're bringing it up or not, but we're putting on this one. But the picture, I think, though, it was on social media of the power lines that you'll see on an angle.
It was, I saw it.
Yeah. Saratoga Dog Park, it's open and it's available for the public as an alternative option. And we're just providing space for the city's electric crews to get out there and rectify that Westview Dog Park. We do perform tree maintenance on damaged trees that are located on public property. But just to remind the public that trees on private property that are damaged are the responsibility of the homeowner. We have sometimes go in and barricaded off an area if that tree is going to be damaging another property. We have on rare circumstances had to intervene on a situation if it causes a public safety issue. The accumulation of ice that we had on the roadways this morning on boulevards and sidewalks, it made it challenging for us to have crews with a bucket truck securely having the footing down in place to be able to repair some of the trees or cut some of the tree branches that were falling. We did perform a lot of activities this morning that were done mostly on the ground, and we are deploying our bucket trucks to address some of the other hanging limbs that we have. Unfortunately, this last year to 2 years, we've had a lot of high wind events. And so, the positive side is we've seen less of the falling branches because we know that they have been addressed through previous wind events. Situation would certainly be a lot different if the trees had leaves on them as well. So that would have been a challenging situation. So yes, that's a picture we're referencing. Thanks, Eric, for bringing us very much on the spot. But
Wow. I wish I could take credit for that.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's who you're pointing to, Eric there. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so we'd just like to thank the public for their patience as the city crews are working to perform the cleanup activities and restore service after the high wind event yesterday.
Wow.
Chief Eakins?
Yeah, thanks. And through the chair, just a couple of notes from fire services. We did respond to 15 calls for service yesterday, 10 of which were directly related to the weather and wind conditions. That included 4 electrical hazards, many trees on power lines, 5 public access. We did have some power outages in certain parts of the city where we did have one individual trapped in an elevator, and then also an MVA, which is a vehicle accident on Highway 1 with a truck and trailer rollover just due to the wind. So additionally, we did have five fire alarms throughout that time as well through the day shift that we managed to work through. And so just wanted to say thanks to the several departments that we worked with, including Municipal Works, Electric, and certainly was in working with Parks yesterday to work our way through some of those emergencies to clear up some of those roadways, because one certain call there certainly had a tree from a private property that came across a vehicle and then into the roadway. So anyway, just wanted to give a bit of a brief update on what had happened yesterday and say thanks to the departments that gave us a hand to get through that.
Thank you both for that. Just again, want to highlight that those are the public services contributions. Lots of work certainly through our municipal works department and utility distribution systems and other teams as well.
It's pretty amazing after all that wind that all we have closed today is a dog park. Right? Yeah, that's impressive. Thank you both. And then lastly, action items.
Action items.
Has the mustard
Seed. A simple update there. We continue to connect with Mustard Seed and work with them to identify locations. They have been, I would suggest, quite diligent in their efforts to find new locations, attempting to put together a variety of scenarios so that they can move forward with a location. Nothing to share, however, in terms of anything conclusive yet.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that. Anything else?
I have something else.
Okay.
At the trade show this weekend, a couple of ladies came by and asked me about a program that they swore to God was happening, where the city of Medicine Hat had announced that there would be rotating dog parks. So at one time it would be here, another time it would be there. Is that still in the go, or was that program killed or canceled? Or
So through the chair, we've explored that as part of our off-leash areas review. We did some information that we shared with the public. We did some engagement in a couple of parks. The central concerns of that is if you have a property that backs a park space that wasn't designed as a dog park, and we would be utilizing existing spaces. And so saying, how do we move it from community to community? It wasn't well received in the community. It's not something that we're pursuing. We're pursuing upgrades to existing dog parks and then planning for the north end to do an additional dog park up there.
okay, so the plan to have movable or move around dog parks is no more.
That's unless we have a different direction from council and we come forward in the spring with off-leash areas review results. But it wasn't well received by a lot of communities. I said you do need to have enjoy your deck when there's dogs maybe barking on the other side of the deck, so, or on the other side of the fence. So we want to make sure that we do it purposeful and that it doesn't impact the ability for residents to enjoy their own property.
Okay, thank you.
Any other business? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.